Okay. Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of the episode, When the Mind Reveals Its True Nature. What is the nature of a mind where that mind finds itself in a changing world? I guess for part 2 of this episode, I'll start off by going into reading some quotes for the listeners. There's a quote from Guru Padmasambhava. He says, "Day and night, look into your mind. If your stream of mind contains any non-virtue, renounce it from the core of your heart and pursue virtue." If people look at the screen, this is Guru Padmasambhava, a picture of Guru Padmasambhava. Okay, sorry guys, I'm a bit nasally trying to get through this episode. Alright, so back to the Guru Padmasambhava quote tunnel. Guru Padmasambhava says, "If you want to know your past life, look at your present condition. If you want to know your future life, look at your present actions." You know, it's as if in every moment, technically, there's a relationship between our past and our future. When I wonder about, in some sense, why I am giving these Mr.Within talks, why in this lifetime a kid who wanted to be a soccer player, became let's say, philosophy podcaster, when I wonder why, right? It's as if Guru Padmasambhava is saying, it's as if I am being Mr. Within now because of my past life, or, you know, the concept of life could be in some sense non-dual for some. You know, some people think their past life they were like a king, right? And some people feel in their past life they were life without a past. They were life. Imagine a bunch of people are showing off, like one person's like, buddy, in my past life, you know, I was the greatest warrior. And then imagine somebody's like, buddy, in my past life, I was the greatest emperor. And then somebody's like, guys, in my past life, I was the Milky Way galaxy. And people are like, okay, you know, calm down, buddy. Guru Padmasambhava says, if you want to know your future life, look at your present actions. And it would be as if I am being Mr. Within now because of my, let's say, past. And what Mr. Within is saying is in some sense the future, right? Like, for example, I think maybe one of the big challenges for me specifically is that you see in the lifetime when a person does anything, they are imprinting that event in their psyche. Now, if the mind, following a Cartesian mind-body dualism, if a sort of substance dualism where the mind and body are acting like they're different substances or different dimensions. You know, there is a great renunciation in every lifetime. There is something which the effort of the individual stops and the contentment of the collective begins. You know, as someone speaking about the advanced civilization, it's as if like I'm keeping that in my attention. The challenge for me is to be able to renounce, or I shouldn't say renounce, but to realize that the nature of the body is temporary. The nature of the mind is semi-temporary because of the body and semi-infinite because of that which is beyond the mind. Or let me say it this way, objects come and go. A person cannot hold on to an object as truth. Subjects come and go. A person cannot hold on to a subject as truth. And that moment when a person cannot hold on to an object, cannot hold on to a subject, it's as if, what are they? You see, it's this hilarious scenario where it's like either everything is freedom or in some sense nothing is free, you know? Guru Padmasambhava says, are you oblivious to the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death? There is no guarantee that you will survive even past this very day. The time has come for you to develop perseverance in your practice, for at this singular opportunity you could attain the everlasting bliss of nirvana. So now is certainly not the time to sit idly, but starting with the reflection on death, you should bring your practice to completion. The moments of our life are not expendable, and the possible circumstances of death are beyond imagination. If you do not achieve an undaunted confident security now, what point is there in your being alive, O living creature? This is from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where I don't know if people know this, pretty much Guru Padmasambhava writes this book, hides it in this, what do you call it? in somewhere, and years later some new person who's born goes and finds it as a sort of prophecy. Guru Padmasambhava says, abandon your notions of the past without attributing a temporal sequence. Cut off your mental associations regarding the future without anticipation. Rest in a spacious modality without clinging to the thoughts of the present. Do not meditate at all, since there's nothing upon which to meditate. Instead, revelation will come through undistracted mindfulness, since there's nothing by which you can be distracted. Guru Padmasambhava says I don't know if this is an accurate quote, but it says it's from the first complete translation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. In modern science, the methods of analysis are principally applied to investigating the nature of material entities. Thus, the ultimate nature of matter is sought through a reductive process, and the macroscopic world is reduced to the microscopic world of particles. Yet, when the nature of these particles is further examined, we find that ultimately their very existence as objects is called into question. Guru Padmasambhava says you don't have to be a philosopher, you just have to want to know who you are. Honestly, philosophy is just wondering about what's going on. That's how it begins. A creature finds itself in manifestation, wondering why the manifest has become man. Guru Padmasambhava says, the moments of our life are not expendable, and the possible circumstances of death are beyond imagination. If you do not achieve I read this. Guru Padmasambhava says, if upon looking outwards towards the external expanse of the sky, there are no projections emanated by the mind, and if on looking inwards at one's own mind, there is no projection as to projects thoughts by thinking them, then one's own mind, completely free from conceptual projections, will become luminously clear. There we go, guys. This is the algorithm. So Guru Padmasambhava is pretty much saying that in front of your eyes, just see the physical, the outer realms as they are, without any concept to give it. That means don't see Earth as Earth, just see what is here, Sorry, guys. I'm having that allergy itch, in my, inner body. But anyways, Guru Padmasambhava says, please guide all beings from the swamp of cyclical existence. And in the previous one, he's saying that in the outer realms, like look at the sky without the sky being the concept of the sky, and behind your eyes, look at something without being the perceiver of the concept. That means if we divide the mind into the observed and the observer, the observed is in the outer realms. It's like how the mind overlays on the outer realms. And the observer is how in the inner realms, that which is watching, aware of thoughts. It's as if like manifestation serves an unknown inner viewer, known manifestation. The Buddha also has a quote. Let me see. This was on another website. I can't find the quote from Buddha, but pretty much Buddha had this quote where he's saying the nature of mind is luminous. The mind is like, a sort of freedom of being. If we do not project, if we don't link subjects to objects in front of our eyes, and if we don't consider that we're a subject moving an object behind our eyes, the luminous nature of the mind is how when something is present, it's like prior to the personality, being overlaid to, in some sense, create another dimension of meaning. Pretty much it's like we're trapped in a bunch of dreams, okay? This is really it. It's like Inception. What are these dreams? I will tell you. One dream is, for example, the ancient mystics considered the material world to be a sort of dream. Now, inside the material world, we have a creature that speaks and language is developed. We can say the ego is in some sense the second dream, and then from the ego comes language. That's the third dream, and from language comes in some sense the multiplicity of the outer realms. You know what it is? It's like this. Imagine somebody is walking in the forest and they see like a tiger. Now imagine the person in their mind is like, this tiger is my best friend, right? It's like an inner projection. It's an inner overlay on the outer realms, and they go to hug a wild tiger, and the tiger's like, is my food walking towards me? Or what is it, like certain animals can smell the meat of other animals? So imagine somebody wanting to go hug a tiger, right? Because of their inner realms convincing them that the tiger is their best friend. They're like, oh my God, this wild tiger in the forest is Tony the Tiger, from the, cornflake cereal box. Who knew Tony the Tiger was, walking, and living in the jungle, The idea is that the mind is an additional tool. Human beings have been using tools. Tools have been what have shifted us, what has allowed us to step out of the food chain. Back in the day, people didn't have time to be people. They were in some sense in unconscious cycles and, let's say, ecosystems of survival. So, kind of that passage from Guru Padmasambhava is saying, like, I'll give you an example. It's like, let's say person A and person B they're talking. And instead of person A, thinking they know person B, he's thinking that person B is something specific. It's like Guru Padmasambhava is saying, press pause on how the outer realms has to mean something, and how the outer realms have to be subjectively oriented, subjectively given meaning, and in some sense also the one that is giving meaning behind your eyes. It's pretty much two simulations that the moment you realize you're empty, the mind enters non-duality and its luminous nature arises. It's as if you release the self from the outer realms, and you release the world from your inner realms. It's like, it's strange, but it seems to be that the more human beings have attempted to know things, the more they have fragmented their psyche. And a lot of this mystical talk and wisdom of these ancient traditions is simply that before you were a broken mirror, what is the mirror reflecting? Is that broken or not? Guru Padmasambhava says, transcendent renunciation is developed by meditating on the preciousness of human life in terms of the ocean of evolutionary possibilities, the immediacy of death, the inexorability of evolutionary causality, and the sufferings of the ignorance-driven, involuntary life cycle. Renunciation automatically occurs when you come face to face with your real existential situation, and so develop a genuine sympathy for yourself. Having given up pretending the person of habitual emotions and confusions is just fine, meditating on the teachings given on these themes in a systematic way enables you to generate quickly an ambition to gain full control of your body and mind in order at least to face death confidently, knowing you can navigate safely through the dangers of further journeys. Wasting time investing your life in purposes that you cannot take with you becomes ludicrous, and when you radically shift your priorities, you feel a profound relief at unburdening yourself of a weight of worry over inconsequential things. Guru Padmasambhava says, "O you, with your mind far away, thinking that death will not come, entranced by the pointless activities of this life, if you were to return empty-handed now, would not your life's purpose have been utterly confused? Recognize what it is that you truly need. It is a sacred teaching for liberation. So should you not practice this divine sacred teaching, beginning from this very moment?" Guru Padmasambhava says, and evidently this is from a book called Advice from the Lotus Born. Agitation due to circumstances occurs when, because of an external incident, you follow a thought and your mind becomes agitated and scatters into a disturbing emotion. When that happens, keep the attitude of, in quotations, "there's no need to do anything." Train in loving kindness and compassion, disenchantment means, and knowledge and devotion. Following that, persevere in the practices as at the time of the view. That will clear it. Guru Padmasambhava says, my father is wisdom, and my mother is voidness. My country is the country of Dharma. I am of no caste, and no creed. I am sustained by perplexity, and I'm here to destroy lust, anger, and sloth. Guru Padmasambhava says death holds up an all-seeing mirror. The mirror, in quotations, the mirror of past actions to our eyes, in which the consequences of all our negative and positive actions are clearly seen, and there is a weighing of our past actions in the light of their consequences, the balance of which will determine the kind of existence or mental state we're being driven to enter. Guru Padmasambhava says, in our present world age, 1,000 Buddhas will appear. Each one will be accompanied by an emanation of Guru Rinpoche to carry out the Buddha's activities. Guru Padmasambhava says the root of faults is nothing other than your ego-clinging, the attitude of deluded fixation. So cut the ties of ego clinging, cast away the fixation on enemy and friend, forsake worldly concerns, abandon materialistic pursuits, engage in nothing but the Dharma from the core of your heart. Just as a seedling doesn't grow on a stone, there will be no enhancement without removing the fault of ego clinging. You should therefore abandon the root of all the root of all evils, ego clinging. Guru Padmasambhava says the awakened state of mind is neither male nor female. Guru Padmasambhava says when realization occurs, you should definitely be free from samsara so that your disturbing emotions naturally subside and become original wakefulness. What is the use of a realization that fails to reduce your disturbing emotions? Guru Padmasambhava says, within the sky, like empty mind, habitual tendencies and disturbing emotions are just like clouds and mist. When they appear within the expanse of empty mind. When they remain within the expanse of empty mind. And when they dissolve in the same expanse of empty mind. Guru Padmasambhava says, although your mind lies beyond birth and death, this illusory body does die, so practice while remembering death. The Guru said human beings don't think of death. A man's life is like a pile of chaff or a feather on a mountain pass. The demon lord of death comes suddenly, like an avalanche or a storm. Disturbing emotions are like straw catching fire. Your lifespan decreases like the shadows of the setting sun. This life is crossed in a brief moment, but samsara is endless. What will you do in the next life? Also, the length of this life is not guaranteed. The time of death lies uncertain, and like a convict taken to the scaffold, you draw closer to death with each step. All beings are impermanent and die. Haven't you heard about the people who died in the past? Haven't you seen any of your relatives die? Don't you notice that we grow old, and still, rather than practicing the Dharma, you forget about past grief? Chased by temporary circumstances, tied by the rope of dualistic fixation, exhausted by the river of desire, caught in the web of samsaric existence, held captive by the tight shackles of karmic ripening, even when the tidings of the Dharma reach you, you still cling to diversions and remain careless. Is it that death doesn't happen to people like you? I pity all sentient beings who think in this way. The Guru said, when you keep in mind the misery of dying, it becomes clear that all activities are causes for suffering, so give them up, cut all ties. Even the smallest, and meditate in solitude on the remedy of emptiness. Nothing whatsoever will help you at the time of death, so practice the Dharma since it is your best companion. You know, pretty much Guru Padmasambhava is saying the problem with death is that it's like we have to inevitably confront an emptiness. And Guru Padmasambhava is kind of saying, like, use the Dharma now, use what you have now to comprehend the nature of emptiness, because before, in some sense, in this life, we go towards death. It's as if before we die, we attempt to realize the true nature of life, right? That's like, why else am I giving these talks? You know, why else should a temporary creature care for anything? Freedom seems to be a state. Guru Padmasambhava says, associate with companions who are in harmony with the Dharma and who don't promote disturbing emotions. Keeping company with the unwholesome friends, you cannot possibly avoid being influenced by their evil ways. That is the root of going astray. You know, it's just intentions. That means if you took away, you know, people's personalities and you didn't care how they looked like, you know, you only looked at their behavior, it's like their persona, their objective experience and subjective existence, it occurs through a spontaneous intent. You know what it is? Where honestly everybody's behaving like an antenna, and in every moment the type of signal that we receive from the world, it suggests the type of intent they will have. You know, if a child is born in a peaceful world, it is more inclined. You know, it's as if it knows peace before, you know, the absence of peace. You know, imagine if right now we were born in an advanced civilization and then somehow civilization stopped becoming advanced. It's as if we'd know some part of our nature would be acquainted with the advanced. Guru Padmasambhava says, what is the difference between Buddhas and sentient beings? It is nothing other than realizing or not realizing mind. The substance of the awakened state of Buddha is present within you, but you don't recognize it. It's as if there's greatness within us and people are like, man, how do I become great? You know. The world is a beautiful place, guys. It is beautiful because the beauty exists within us, you know. For example, you know, when a man loves a woman or a woman loves a man, it's like, what is that? In some sense, something within, you know, has found something without that is so close to its nature that it cannot avoid. You know, this world is a very interesting place in the sense that it's like we open our eyes with a box on our head, and when we take off that box, we realize the reality of the box is not reality, you know. It's as if we have cornered ourselves in our beliefs on the world rather than experiencing the world directly and allowing the beliefs to arise that way. Guru Padmasambhava evidently in this next quote is giving advice to a king. Can you imagine being someone where, you know, kings and queens would be like, yo man, can you help me out? The king asked, what does it mean to gain certainty? The master responded, this is Guru Padmasambhava. So the king says, what does it mean to gain certainty? Guru Padmasambhava says, gain certainty in the fact that since the very beginning your own mind is the awakened state of Buddhahood. Gain certainty in the fact that all phenomena are the magical display of your mind. Gain certainty in the fact that the fruition is present in yourself and is not to be sought elsewhere. Gain certainty in the fact that your master is the Buddha in person. Gain certainty in the fact that the nature of view and meditation is the realization of the Buddhas. To gain such confidence, you must practice. And you know why Guru Padmasambhava is telling the king to practice? Because we are a habitual entity and we get convinced by our habits in regards to our ability, right? Imagine there's someone who is like, there's someone who's the greatest violin player on the planet, but this person doesn't know. And so instead of playing the violin, they've given this person a saxophone, right? And the person's like, man, you know, it's like, I feel like I should be holding the saxophone differently. I feel like there should be another way, you know, I should be creating music. And so suddenly, the moment that person realizes that the saxophone is not their destiny and realizes the violin is their destiny, for example, you know. Guru Padmasambhava says to be a meditator doesn't simply mean to live in a cave. It means to train oneself in the true meaning of the natural state. You know, it's honestly the distinction between conditional truth and unconditional truth. If our true nature is unconditional truth, that means we can't do anything to figure it out and we can't do anything to get rid of it. It is present unconditionally. Beyond the defining power of conditions. Guru Padmasambhava says, the great perfection I learned from my naturally aware mind. I have realized that all phenomena are like dreams, like magic. I think Neo from the Matrix would agree with this quote. Guru Padmasambhava says, day and night, look into your mind. If your stream of mind contains any non-virtue, renounce it from the core of your heart and pursue virtue. In other words, they believe the This is another quote from Guru Padmasambhava. He says, in other words, they believed or posited that there is an essence or soul of the person which exists independently from the body and mind of the person. Guru Padmasambhava says mind is spontaneously present from the beginning. Like the sun, it is free from any basis for the darkness of ignorance. Like a lotus flower, it is untainted by faults. Like gold, it doesn't alter its own nature. Like the ocean, it is unmoving. Like a river, it is unceasing. Like Mount Sumeru, it is utterly unchanging. Once you realize that this is how it is and stabilize it, that is called possessing the view of realization. So that's the end of the quote tunnel. Sorry guys, this today I need to go buy Claritin or something. What else can I say about when the mind reveals its true nature? You're being something which you can't do anything about to notice, right? So when you stop doing anything, you notice how you're being. And once you're grounded and established in the unknown presence of your attention, then whatever is in your attention also, it's as if the light of the unknown is within it. When one realizes that they have shifted from, a temporary known self and a temporary known world to, in some sense, an unknown self in an unknown world, it's as if the other side of the temporary is the changeless. It's as if the world is like a coin, one side change, one side changeless. From one angle, energy cannot be created or destroyed. From another angle, energy is transforming endlessly, as sort of, endless rebirth, of manifestation. In my own experience of when the mind reveals its true nature, I have realized that it has to do with karma to some degree, the type of karma you have, but at the same time it has to do with how much there is a willingness to allow the simplistic and the decent to be present. Any being who right now listening to me, if you can allow not just the idea of yourself to engage with freedom, but if you can allow yourself to for a second wonder, what if the true nature of reality has never gone anywhere? What if truth cannot have an illusion? That is the luminous nature of the presence of attention in a world. Language, nouns and verbs have, shackled us to inner storytelling, but in some sense it's as if, what is it? Or it's as if, could the true nature be simpler than what the senses provide, the sensory perception? Could it be in some sense simpler? Than the conscious response or unconscious reactions of the mind to the senses. I will end off this episode by requesting from all conscious beings in this universal sector to immediately wonder about their true nature, to journey into the question, who am I? And to realize that what a person is will be left to be a created observance, or the creator, the observer that is the creator. The nature of space is to not contain. It's not like space is containing matter. It is in some sense that matter is a quality of the space. On some level, it's as if there's a field of activity that is being its own, let's say, infinite eternal truth, and then what is moving in this field of activities are like particles, and the identification of the universe with a fragment is in some sense a sort of intentional ignorance to see the whole thing again. What is freedom? And where does freedom start? If freedom starts in the outer realms, right, a person can, let's say, unshackle themselves from, the turmoils of the outer realms. But then how would I tell you? It's as if some moments in life you can change your location, but still that won't change your mind. But some moments you can be wherever you're existing and you can change your mind, and it's more like an inner transformation or an inner shift of perspective rather than an outer shift of perspective. Like to me, it's remarkable how many Buddhic figures in history have looked at human beings and have been just like, in your simplicity, the mysteries of the complex are unraveled. We should not ignore how life is being instantaneously. Truth is instantaneous. That is the greatest thing I could say about when the mind reveals its true nature. Because you see, if there is an idea, if a person says, man, I'm this kind of self, and this kind of self is going to try to understand its mind in this kind of world, it's as if we are moving ourselves, therefore we are ignoring that which could be moving us. When the mind reveals its true nature, whether it's Guru Padmasambhava's quotes I'm reading, or whether it's Sri Ramana Maharshi, where he says pretty much stop searching for truth and just sit still and silent, and that wisdom you seek is actually following you and it will reach you. I find that the fruits of Dharma are how freedom is authorized infinitely. Could it be that there has never been anything wrong with how the world has been the world? It is man's mind, that makes himself into a character in the games of his experience, in the games of memory. This picture I'm showing you right now, this picture, I would say, is it appears like it's on a beach, but I would like to consider that it's on the clouds, and pretty much it's the bodhisattvic presence. When a human being suffers enough in their individual life, a situation may happen where a person may give up on their individualism. I've had moments in this lifetime, I'll tell you, where this has happened in a micro way, where I've been in a situation and I've cared for the environment, and suddenly there's been this feeling as if the moment does not require my existence, and I've in some sense left the moment. There's times where I would say the nature of my mind has not just been how the sequence of the events of perception take place, but it's that the mind is being live streamed from elsewhere, just like I'm giving this live stream. Right now, imagine, you know what it is? It's like somebody thinking that your voice is you. The voice is a part of the person. The characteristics of manifestation are, they are parts of reality, truth. They're not truth. When I say true nature of mind, when the mind reveals its true nature, it's as if when the mind reveals its true nature, it's not the mind that the person fathoms for the self that's in the egoic driver's seat. Before I end off, I want to read a bunch of quotes from the Lotus Sutra on emptiness. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, however, Tathagata understands the law of one form and one flavor, namely the form of deliverance, the form of dissociation, and the form of dissolution, as well as the ultimate nirvana of eternal tranquility that will eventually return to its original emptiness. The Buddha fully comprehends these, but he does not immediately expound the perfect wisdom to all living beings because he wishes to protect them after having perceived the desires in the mind. In the Lotus Sutra, it says again, if there are those who practice meditation and attain divine powers, having heard the law of emptiness, they experience exuberant joy in their hearts and emit innumerable rays of light so as to save numerous living beings. They are the large tree that will grow and develop in their own ways. In the Lotus Sutra says, throughout the long night we practice the law of emptiness, so as to be liberated from the threefold world and the bitter pains of trials and tribulations. Dwelling in the final existence, we expected to attain the partial nirvana. You know, nirvana, guys, is when you realize why here is being here. Not just why you are here, but why the here is being here. The here and now is being here. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, O monks, if Tathagata knows of his impending parinirvana and knows that the people in the assembly are pure, firm in faith and understanding, have perceived the law of emptiness and are able to enter deep meditation, then he will gather the assembly of bodhisattvas and shravakas to expound the Lotus Sutra for them. In this universe, there are no two vehicles to attain parinirvana, for true extinction can only be achieved via the one and only Buddha vehicle. Evidently, there's enlightening transport systems, guys, you know. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, furthermore, he had a perfect understanding of the law of emptiness expounded by the Buddhas. Having acquired the four unhindered wisdoms, he was able to expound with clarity. Free of doubt and confusion, he had fully developed the divine powers of bodhisattvas. Lifetime after lifetime, he consistently carried out pure Brahma practices. Therefore, he was recognized as a true Shravaka for all people living in the era of that particular Buddha. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, the sanctuary represents a mind of great mercy and compassion. The robe represents a heart of gentleness and patience. The throne represents the awareness of emptiness in all phenomena. These are the three principles to apply when the Lotus Sutra is expounded. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, even before he had finished his reply, innumerable bodhisattvas seated on the jeweled lotus flowers emerged from the oceans and arrived at Eagle Park, where they remained elevated in the air. These bodhisattvas had all been taught, transformed, and saved by Manjushri. Those who had mastered bodhisattva practice were having a discussion on the 6 paramitas. Those Shravakas who previously carried out the Shravakas practices in mid-air were now practicing the Mahayana principle of emptiness. Manjushri said to accumulated wisdom, these are the people in the oceans who were taught by me. In the Lotus Sutra, it says, next, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas should view all phenomena as being intrinsically empty in order to correctly perceive their true nature, which has no topsy-turvy, no movement, no regression, and no evolvement. It is like an empty nothingness without intrinsic nature and beyond the expression of word. There is no birth, no emerging, no arising, no name, no form, no substantial existence, no quantity, no boundary, no hindrance, and no obstruction. All phenomena arise by reason of causation, and they are commonly explained in an inverted manner by reason of creation. In the Lotus Sutra it says, why is this so? Because Tathagata completely perceives the true characteristics of the threefold world as they are. There is no birth or death, no ebbing or arising, neither is there present existence and subsequent extinction, substantial reality or fictitious imagination, same or different. These characteristics of realities are not what one perceives them to be while living in the threefold world. Tathagata has clearly and unmistakably seen all these. And the last quote I'm going to read from the Lotus Sutra, again, if someone, irrespective of whether his is guilty or not, being shackled by manacles, fetters, kangoos, never heard this word before. Kangoos or chains should call upon the name Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara. Then his shackles will be destroyed, setting him free. Just the intent of freedom is liberating, guys. The ability of this realm is in some sense the attainment of insight, and insight is poetically what is in our sight, what is aware that such sight is happening. And so I would say, from your simplest self in your simplest world, freedom is already there for the simple self. For the complex self, freedom is also there, but it is conditional. It's how simpler truths, simpler principles build into complex scenarios. To be free instantaneously, that is true understanding. And you know, I'm actually very happy that the concept of the Bodhisattva exists. The Bodhisattva would be an ancient term for what I consider the advanced communicators that will build advanced civilization to be. To be free before you could not be. through simplicity, patience, and compassion. Through clarity, understanding, and love. Extinction will not touch the ever-present. The pilots of consciousness is how the bodhisattvic intent, the seeds of bodhisattvic vision have been already planted. You know, there have been great beings before us, and there will be great beings after us. And the greatness of being is just how consciousness allows itself to be great. Because we really have one life, right? Because it takes the same amount of energy to think you're not free, you know, as thinking you're free. It's like just the same. It's like imagine in one moment of time, a person can choose to see victory or they can choose to see defeat. Now imagine that when it comes to the idea of victory and defeat, there is an unconditional victory. Or here, let me draw this. So if people look at the screen, you will see that pretty much I think this is a very important idea. We have the concept of victory. We have the concept of the conditional and the unconditional. And then we have, in some sense, the concept of defeat. We have the conditional, and we have the unconditional. So technically, the four possibilities would be conditional victory, unconditional victory, conditional defeat, and unconditional defeat. Unconditional defeat, I guess the ancient term would be like bad karma. It's as if like the person doesn't have a choice, you know, they are defeated just by where they are, right? So unconditional defeat is never got a chance. Conditional defeat was had a chance, but then it ended up in defeat. Conditional victory, it's like there's a chance, you know, chance for victory. And I would say unconditional victory, it's as if you never got a chance. It's as if victory was there from the beginning. To realize your true nature of mind is to recognize the unconditional defeat is emptiness. To realize that the conditional defeat also leads to emptiness. It's like emptiness with an entrance, you know. The conditional victory is in some sense fullness or totality. But it's like the entrance to fullness. and unconditional victory. It is how the Supreme never left the room. You know, it's as if the person prayed to God, not realizing God is right here as the will of manifestation, you know, technically. From manner of speech, I mean, you know. Right now, we started from unconditional defeat. Now, we experienced a conditional defeat, right? That means we've made decisions on this earth. Before, let's say, there was no consciousness to make decisions, then there came a consciousness to make decisions, and then the consciousness to make these decisions, it led to a defeat. And so, you know what it is? It's like from unconditional defeat, we went to conditional defeat. From conditional defeat, we'll go to conditional victory, and then from conditional victory, we go to unconditional victory. And then pretty much samsara's, samsara can go home. Can you imagine somebody loving the world so much? That it's as if they're like, you know, before I get out of samsara, how can I get the world out of samsara? Anyways, guys, thanks for listening to this episode. This is the completion of part 2 to episode 1817. And have a great day. Namaste.